got 10 minutes to talk about World War II and your part in it.
As soon as I finish this.
Okay.
I was drafted, and we looked at numbers and discovered I was, what do you call it, enlisted, or not enlisted, but I was in January 1943. Whatever you call it, became a...
You were drafted, I guess.
That's right, I was drafted, I forgot. And I can see that we were meeting with a big group of people over, I forget where it was, and going by bus, and I think we went by bus to Fort Thomas in Kentucky.
So you departed from Columbus, Ohio?
Yeah.
January 43.
January something of 43.
Yeah.
And went to Fort Thomas, and we weren't there very long, and then I think we went to a camp in Rockford, Illinois, or someplace like that.
Actually, it was 18 January 1943. I was there, I remember it.
Oh.
No, I read it off your discharge papers.
Yeah. Well, and you remembered it, see, and I don't remember it. Anyway, there was some original training up there. I just don't remember that very well. And I can't remember from the details, but because I had worked for Spears Funeral Home on an ambulance when they still used ambulances for funeral homes, which they don't anymore, and and without any particular first aid training and all of that, we got some. But
So they chose to make you a medic based on that.
yeah, that's they figured, well, you've had this, so at least that's something, so you become a medic.
Yep.
And that's not all bad. It meant that you care for people.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd have done something different. But we'd get the call maybe middle of the night or whatever, and you'd go out on the National Highway, Route 70, and pick up the pieces. And then.
So you did the Kentucky training of some kind, and then.
And then I just can't remember all of those training exercises. Eventually, I went to Walla Walla, Washington, and that was a training exercise.
Okay.
And I don't even remember now what the training was.
Okay. So this is still 1943.
Yeah.
Probably early 1943.
Yeah, I think so. And then from Walla Walla, I went to maybe Army Specialized Training Program at the College of Corvallis, Oregon. 6 months.
6 months?
Yeah, to learn, so that I could be a real good soldier.
Oh, that wasn't medical training then. That wasn't medic training.
It was training for Spanish.
Oh, that's right. Right. Yeah, that's right. You told me.
And that's, from this point of view, it's kind of a joke.
Yeah.
What in the world are you going to use Spanish for? Well, my report is that the only time I used that Spanish training, although I had been taking Spanish all my schooling, high school and college and everything else, I was in Spanish classes, and I got a haircut in Marseille after we got to Marseille, and the barber was from Spain.
And did you get a good haircut?
Yeah.
Because you could speak a little bit of Spanish?
Oh, I don't know about the haircut.
Then the 6 months of training was worth it. So after the 6 months in Oregon, Corvallis, where did you go?
We went out to I forget the name of the camp, but it was an infantry camp. And that's where we trained as infantry, new infantry. We went to the rifle range, and
Were you assigned to your unit yet? Or not yet? You're
Not yet.
Still being moved around as medics in training, sort of. Okay.
Yeah. Not yet. And John Dooley, I think, was out there at the same time, who's been a good friend and a mentor. About 3 years older. He's about 90-something now, 92 or whatever. I get mixed up on it because for medical training, sometime I wound up at Denver General Hospital. But I don't think I'd been assigned to a unit yet.
Okay.
And lo and behold, I worked in a ward of guys who were home from Attu. And Attu was cold, way up in the end.
Bering Straits, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere up there?
Yeah. And this ward was full of people who'd had frostbite. And that's because they were in holes and not getting out, not getting their legs exercised. Some of them lost their feet. They're up to their ankle and all. I don't think any lost their legs in that ward.
you didn't depart the States for the European theater until 6 December 44, according to your discharge papers.
Right,
Okay.
right. And Fort Leonard Wood was where we got prepared.
Okay, so this was after the infantry training in Oregon somewhere.
Some infantry training and the general hospital training,
the general hospital
which
training.
was the medic background.
Yeah. And you said that was where?
Denver.
Denver, okay.
Yeah. We went to Fort Leonard Wood for the preparation to leave.
How did you move around from base to base to base during all this time?
Train most of the time,
Trains.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember coming home, I was on leave after some basic training or something, coming all the way home on the train, on the north, the far north route, whichever route that is, it was from Washington, I think, after Walla Walla, maybe, and coming home on the train, and it was the cars on the train included those cars from 100 years earlier, you know, and some of them had the old-fashioned heaters, stoves in the end of the car. You know, they recovered everything. And then Fort Leonard Wood, we shipped to, I don't think it was Baltimore.
Do you remember about what time you shipped from Leonard Wood? What year, maybe?
I think it was 44.
44. Okay, so we've gone through Christmas 43 now, somewhere during this time. Okay.
And we sailed on I think it was called during the war, maybe the West Point, but I think it was the America before the war. You know,
The name of the ship, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
It changed during the war, and then it went back. And I think there were about a division on the. And by that time, I was assigned somewhere along the way, and I don't remember where. The Medical Detachment of the 275th Regiment of the 70th Division, Pine Tree Division.
Okay.
So then we went by ship.
So you think it was Baltimore that you...
No, it wouldn't have been Baltimore, I'm pretty sure.
But it was some major port on the East Coast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, up north. But anyway, that's where we shipped out of, and we had about 15,000 troops on that thing.
Was there any concern about being torpedoed or any of that kind of stuff at this time of the war?
I really don't know.
Okay.
And I can't remember whether it was playing this way with the convoy and whether we were in the convoy. I can't even remember that, Tim.
Okay. All right.
I can't just remember. I only know that we were going in. We went in through through Gibraltar. What do you suppose I was doing during that time?
Cleaning your weapon.
No, I didn't have a weapon.
Conducting sick call.
No.
Nothing.
There's four of us. There's four of us sitting on the deck, on the blanket,
Playing cards.
learning. They were teaching me how to play bridge, of all things. Bridge.
Bridge.
Not poker. I could have played poker. They had to teach me how to play bridge. So we're just sitting there on the deck, going through the Straits of Gibraltar, and then we're getting ready, and we're getting the gas mask ready and all that kind of stuff, because we're going to be at Marseille shortly. And so we got Marseille, and we unloaded. We offloaded at Marseille, and I don't even remember much of the offloading. I only know that we went and we stayed in tents up on the hill in the rain from Marseille. And that's when I had time. We were there long enough, just a brief time, but long enough for me to go get a haircut from a barber in Marseille.
And to get to use your 6 months of Spanish.
And he had come from Spain, because they're not too far from the border, that area, you know. Then we loaded into 40s and 8s, 40 and 8s.
What are those?
Those are dinky little boxcars in Europe, bumping along on up to, and I can't remember, Tim, I don't think it's Saarbrücken. I don't know where Saarbrücken is.
Saarbrücken?
Yeah,
Okay.
Germany. Or Strasbourg, and it's probably more likely maybe that we wound up in Strasbourg, I don't know.
So you got off the ship in Marseille,
Yeah.
and you eventually got on a train and were trained up to Germany.
Well, Alsace-Lorraine, I think.
Okay, where's that? What country is that?
That's between France and Germany.
Okay.
And I think it's not a country. I think it's part of, but it's just it's an identity that is well known. Alsace and Lorraine, and
Okay.
I don't know whether Lorraine is in the southern part, and that's where we got that area. And we went online. We had to walk from the train, you know, and I think that's.
How long were you on the train, do you think? You remember?
I can't believe it would have been longer than a day.
Oh, really?
24 hours or so. I don't know how many miles it is,
Yeah.
but it seems like it isn't very far. But
Okay.
I have no idea because it probably wasn't going 100 miles an hour by a long shot,
Yeah.
and so it could have been a couple days.
Yeah.
I doubt it because then they had to feed us and all that
Right,
kind of stuff.
right.
And everybody's in these box
Yeah.
cars.
What's the mood of the men, the soldiers now? You remember anything in particular?
No,
Okay.
no, they're doing their thing. It's what they're supposed to do, and so that's what they're doing.
Right.
Me included.
Right. Okay.
I've been told to do this, so,
Right.
so you do it. And then we get up there, and then we had to walk, I know. And I think this is the time when I'm walking through one or two villages, the European villages, French, German, I don't know which. And, whenever you see something, there's a few places down on Muskegon Avenue, I think it is, that remind me of that because of the architecture of the buildings.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The door open. There's no porch or anything. The door just right opens
Right.
up to the sidewalk.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think of that when I go past that place. Well, then we were on duty on the Rhine.
When you were walking through what you just described, are you in a combat environment? Are you...
No.
Okay, you're administratively walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
To where the assignment was going to be,
I see.
which was along the Rhine. And so our 70th Division was placed along the Rhine under the leadership of, not Patton, I don't think Patton, maybe Patton was the big heel, but the other general who was thought of as a more gracious general. He's a familiar name.
Yeah,
Right?
if I knew World War II history, I'd be able to...
Yeah, you'd know his name
Spot it,
immediately,
probably.
and I just can't think of it.
So, do you remember where on the Rhine abouts? Okay, so the closest city that you recall going through before you got on the Rhine was...
I have no idea.
Well, where you got off the train for starters.
Yeah,
was,
well, it'd be one of the villages
Yeah, okay,
or something.
okay.
And I wouldn't know what the villages were. And
Yeah.
we didn't go through it knowingly when we, as a family, went through later, years
yeah.
later,
Do you remember how long you walked from the train head to where you were going to be assigned?
No
Okay.
idea.
Right.
But I have a feeling that maybe it was less than a day.
Oh,
Maybe.
wow.
Because I can't remember eating or sleeping en route. I can't remember that.
Okay.
And so our unit was scattered along the Rhine. There was nothing happening there. It was just at the Rhine, and nobody had crossed the Rhine yet. And then that's when the Battle of the Bulge. The
Okay.
Germans decided to take one more
Yeah.
thing. Now, if we're not there on the Rhine, maybe a week or something like that, I think I was sleeping in a barn. Maybe if I'm not getting mixed up with other parts of my life. Well, that one story, I was sleeping in a barn when this was during college.
We won't go there right now.
Okay. And I was in a sleeping bag, and that sleeping bag was full of maggots when I woke up.
This is in Germany.
No, this is...
Okay, we won't go there right now.
Okay.
So you're up on the Rhine and it's winter.
Yep, and the Battle of the Bulge starts.
Okay.
And so we're moved, all of us, I think, by truck.
So now are you considering yourself in combat? Are you moving sort of with some care or still sort of administratively?
The combat is more where you arrive, because they came in this one part of the Rhine, they crossed that Rhine, not
Okay.
where we were,
Okay.
but up here. So we had to go up there, and that's where we met the combat time. When we got where we were going, this
Okay.
is the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
Our little piece of it on the south flank
South flank.
at Phillipsburg, and I think what's his name in that little book calls it the Battle of Phillipsburg.
Okay.
And so we're going down the road. This has all been organized, and so we're going down the road, and I'm the medic, and I'm maybe attached to not platoon, but company C or I or something like that. Doesn't matter. And I'm going down the right side of the road
Okay.
as we go forward,
Okay.
and then there's some on the other side.
Are you in the trucks or are you walking?
Walking?
How are you walking? Are you walking like tactically or still administratively?
Nope, administratively. I guess that's what you call it.
Yeah. How close was everybody to each other? The guy in front of him?
Not very far from each other.
5 feet.
Or maybe bigger, 10, 15
10
feet.
Okay.
10 or 15 feet or 20 feet.
How are they holding their weapons? The infantryman.
I didn't pay attention because
Okay.
I didn't have a weapon.
Did they have it? You didn't have any weapon at all?
I didn't have a weapon. No.
So is it fair to conclude that the medics typically were not armed?
We're not armed. That doesn't mean that some medics didn't carry on.
Yeah, understood.
But you had a thing on you.
Right.
I think,
Which stopped all the bullets.
Yeah. Now, before we had started, praise the Lord. Before we had started down the road, we had dropped all of our gear in a field. Boom, boom.
Okay.
All that gear is lined up in that field.
Yeah. Okay.
We had our overcoats. We kept our overcoats.
Yeah.
So we had those big, heavy, and I only got rid of mine 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I had it here. I think I got rid of it. I gave it to whatever. But heavy, you know, and thank goodness. I don't think we dropped that. We dropped the rest of the gear, you know, and that was all dropped there.
And what was going to happen to the gear?
Presumably, somebody's going to pick it up, put it in the truck, and follow us up.
Yeah.
Or do.
Okay. So my conclusion from that is you're now in a tactical formation.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to fight with all that gear on.
That's right.
So.
That's the way I would understand
Yeah.
it. I don't know. You know, I'm just this kid walking along,
Yeah.
scared to death, and whatever.
So now you're afraid because you are anticipating some kind of combat.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay.
I was afraid all the time anyway. But now you become more afraid because you know what you got to be afraid of right now.
Right.
And
Can
so-
you hear any guns or?
Not right then.
Fairly quiet.
Not right then. It's
Okay.
quiet.
Okay.
And then we're walking down this road, and I'm not in the lead company.
Okay.
I think maybe not in the lead platoons or whatever. I can't remember
Right.
how far from the front. Not very far from the front, however. But the pillbox was over here, and no scout or anybody had known that. I don't know how they could have missed it.
Was this daylight?
Yeah.
Okay.
It became night, but it must have been the latter part of the day.
Okay.
It was still daylight, man. We're walking, and no scouts or anybody had come along there and looked and seen there's a pillbox, and so they let part of the early part, and I wasn't too far from the front because I was right up close to the pillbox when they started to fire, and one of the people in the area for which I was responsible, he got injured really bad, and eventually they were firing, and if that pillbox had been organized in such a way that the guns could go right down the ditch,
Yeah.
everybody would have been killed.
Right.
Because you know you go right down, but it was not.
Yes.
Thank God. But some people got it anyway, of course. And this one guy, this is what I can really feel bad about, Tim. This guy and another guy, he was really hurt bad, and I don't know whether his legs had been partly shot off. That was true for the next guy, but he couldn't follow. He couldn't come with us at all.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with him for a while. The captain had already told everybody to retreat, to leave, And I didn't go with everybody else. I stayed trying to do what I could for him. Not being smart, Tim. I was a kid, 18, 19, something like that. And I did the best I knew how.
Right.
But I left him. Now, see, I think of what you say about no, and that came on NPR this morning, this phrase in relation to some story they were telling about the tradition of, but they referred it not to Marines, but to the Army or to the military, no one left behind.
Yeah. But a lot of times when they say that, Dad, they leave them behind temporarily.
Yeah.
Then they go back with more guns, kick butt, and then get the body. So there's some context, okay?
Yeah.
It's easy to say they never left anybody behind.
Yeah.
But there's some detail in there sometimes that isn't apparent.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't let that bother you, quite frankly.
Well, I can hear that, and I understand that too. You live in the real world and there as well. And
how far away? So this is still daylight when you're trying to help this guy.
No.
Or okay,
by
so
this time
it's dark.
It's dark.
And it's real dark, I
And they're
imagine.
sending the flares up.
Yeah.
So that they can see what's going
Right.
on.
The Germans are.
The Germans are. And, but I'm in the hole, and they can't get to me, I guess.
In the ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess they can't get to us. You know, and I'm doing what I can for this guy, which is not very adequate.
Is he exposed or is he in the ditch?
He's in the ditch.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm right there with him, and they're shooting the flares up, and they can't get to us, I think. And I'm scared to death, of course, but in the meantime, you're claimed by what you're trying to do.
Right.
You forget the rest. But then you realize that time to go. You can't stay there forever. But there's a culvert that goes through here. It's fairly sizable. And I'm not wanting to expose myself by jumping up and running over that when they got the flares as well.
Right.
And if they're paying attention, they see this guy jump up and you know, they can pull the trigger faster than I can run across and get in the other side.
Right.
And so I went through the thing.
The culvert.
The culvert. About 2/3 of the way, it was so full of sand that I couldn't go any farther. I was stuck.
Yeah.
Well, I was able, I didn't have to stay there the rest of the war, but I was able to back out the back way. And then I was going to have to jump up and go over.
Yeah.
I'm scared to death, of course. And but then finally, you know, if they weren't shooting flares now, they knew that they'd pretty much defeated the, you know, they'd sent the troops back, the American troops and all that. Maybe they weren't paying attention, so I jumped up and over into the ditch on the other side without any calamity, and went all the way back. However,
Excuse me, there were two guys you were helping or just the one guy?
just one guy there,
Okay.
but I came to another guy on my way back.
Right,
I
okay.
was maybe a quarter of a mile or maybe less than that, you know, from the headquarters unit, which would be, in this case, the medical, and this guy had almost both legs shot off. And this I've never forgotten these two stories, Tim, because you feel bad. Because I might not ever have been able to, but could I have put him over my shoulder and carried him back not too far to the medical station where the doctor was? Or the doctor wasn't there, I don't think, but finally I did the best I knew how, and then I left. And I've never forgotten that, Tim. And I want to cry now. Because he probably, and the other guy too, probably were two that didn't come back.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I left there and went back to the unit
Where they had regrouped.
where everybody had regrouped.
So you're basically out in the front of the front lines, helping these guys on your way back to get back into the front lines.
Yeah. Because everybody else had come back, and I stayed first with the first guy, and then with the second, and went back on my own, and then this is nighttime now.
Right.
And then, Tim, I can't remember exactly how it went from there, but, you know, anybody that was hurt and all would have been carried away, like I would be later on. And then somehow or other, I don't know how, we went up this hill, which is right beside the road. So that gives you a premium spot if the Germans come in this way.
So you went back to where your infantry unit had regrouped.
Right.
This was nighttime.
Yeah.
And then sometime afterwards, you didn't advance back up that road.
No.
You went a different way.
Well, we went up this hill.
Oh, up the hill. Okay.
We went up the hill somehow or other.
So this is only a day or two later, probably then.
Yeah, maybe not even that much.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe the next day. Who knows?
I think it might have been. That part I don't remember.
Okay.
But anyway, we found ourselves next was up on this hill.
Yeah. Do you remember when you came back to your own lines from having been out in the night in front of your own lines? Do you remember much about that?
No.
Was there any danger of getting shot by a sentry that thought you were a German because you were basically out in front of the very front lines?
I doubt if we were that organized,
Yeah.
Tim. You see, I think a lot of these folks that we were with were green people too. You
Right.
know, the 70th Division doesn't have any significant thing in the history. You know, I think most of them were green like I was.
Yeah.
And so.
So was there any? Do you remember when you came back to your own lines, the medical officer talking to you or saying, "Oh, we're great to see you back, Don"?
I don't remember a single thing.
Single
about
thing.
that.
Okay. all right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But, you know, you'd think you'd remember because that's an important place to get to.
It's funny what we remember and what we don't.
But I don't remember that at all.
Okay.
I don't remember how long we were there, whether we got anything to eat, or somebody handed out a thing maybe. Because when we went up the hill, I had one ration, you know, a little sea ration or something. I forget what it was now. But it was just a little thing. And we went up the tune, and then we were spread out on the top of the hill. You know, I'm listening to whomever's giving the orders. I don't even remember who, and so we were all scattered. This company on top of that hill that you went up to. You saw the what do you call it?
I remember the pillbox, and we had
pillbox.
pictures.
Yeah.
But that pillbox was the pillbox you were ambushed the night prior, right?
No.
Oh,
That pillbox that you see the picture
of us crawling all over it.
is up on the hill.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Well, I never even knew it was there at the time till we went back. And we saw, here's a pillbox on
Okay.
this hill.
Okay.
And somebody had to deal with that pillbox, you know. But
What?
I have no idea.
Was it your unit that dealt with it?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right.
All I know is that we
Yeah.
went up there and had to dig in.
Okay.
And so I'm digging in too, and it's a hard dig.
Yeah. The ground, is there snow on the ground?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
There's snow.
So-
Snow on the ground.
Good chance it was frozen ground.
Well, I guess I didn't think of that, but you know, once you get down a little ways, it should be less frozen.
Yeah.
And so I got it down enough I could get into the hole and be down below, you know. And then it wasn't too long. I don't know, Jim. I had one ration. We all just had the one ration, you know. And we were up there 3 days. And it's hard for me to say 3 days now. That's what's always in my mind, 3 days. And nothing happened, I think, for a good while. And then the German tanks came in, and they were starting to clear out the way so they could come forward, which meant they had to deal with any troops on the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the 88s started coming in. So the 88s start coming in on this hill.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, and you've heard this story before, that hole that was so hard to dig went down another foot faster than you could say Jack Robinson. It went right down, man. And I'm huddled down in there. And then during that 3-day time, or when they were first coming, you hear the cry medic. Well, then you jump and go, of course. I mean, you understand that. And even I understand that.
And the 88s are still coming in.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they weren't, but at least they had come in.
But you jumped when they called for the medic.
When that one guy down the hill a little ways, I mean, not down, but on down the hill, the top of the hill, I went down and I did what was needful. I don't even remember what the problem was now. I did the best I could with what I had. And then ran back to my hole. And so for 3 days, mostly in that hole. On that hill, they sent a lot of 88s in, and they'd hit the trees, and they'd bust to pieces, and then you'd hear the shrapnel going pss, 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 as it breaks up and goes, if it hits a tree and shatters and whatever. But that's when you put your head down and with the experience I had at General Hospital in Denver, with a ward full of guys that some of them lost their feet in Attu from frostbite. It was called frostbite, not frozen feet, called frostbite. And gangrene and all that. Well, I should have known better, but I was scared, I suppose, and so I just kept down that hole as long as there was no reason to get up. Nobody ordered you to get up and do this or anything like that. Everybody else was doing the same, and until the 88s came in as the German tanks came, and I think the German tanks bypassed us.
Oh, okay.
They didn't bother us because we weren't bothering them at the moment. And I can't remember the time limit, but they weren't too far beyond us for too long, because pretty soon they came back, and they were driven back, and then that's when they came up after us, and the one guy was taken out on a stretcher. That's the one I had gone down to see.
Was it pretty well forested?
It's forest like up here.
But it looked like when we went through there in the 60s. I mean, it looked the same vegetation kind of.
I think so.
Like about the same.
Up the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Okay. So after 3 days.
Then they got them driven back, and then they were able to come up and get us off, and probably the
Who are they?
Americans.
Was that your 275th Regiment or?
275th, I would think so.
Yeah, okay.
'Cause
Other elements.
They're the ones that are in this area right now, and because they carried him down the hill. See, I can't even remember what it was that was wrong with him, but they carried him down the hill, and I think it looked like he was not a life-threatening injury. And then we all came down, and then we all got to go. I think most of us went in the barn to sleep. There was a barn there, and so we went in to sleep. And I took my boots off. And the next morning, I couldn't get them on.
And this was only after 3 or 4 days up on the hill.
Yeah, 3 days on the hill.
3 days.
And but you're down in that thing.
Yeah.
You're not. I didn't take my boots off
No.
while I was in that hole.
No.
And you're curled up. You're not getting circulation.
Right.
I knew that. I learned that in Denver, but I wasn't smart enough to put it on my own case. Because if you just took your boots off and wiggled your feet away, so that'd be enough to help. And the only gangrene, I just had a little gangrene on my big toe, you know, where it gets black. And you know, they know what that means. And so I get in the truck, go back to Paris. I'm in the hospital in Paris for a week maybe, or something like that. And turns out using the same toilet facilities that guys who had hepatitis were using. And so eventually we went from there to eventually to Whitchurch in Britain. I'm getting about ready to be sent back to the unit. War wasn't over yet.
Right.
I went into town. I was good enough. I got a pass, went into town. I came back, and I was sick, and I didn't want anything to eat. And for me not to want to eat, I didn't want to eat nothing. And that was the beginning of the hepatitis. And
So you contracted the hepatitis in the
well, I think
hospital.
it's pretty clear in the hospital at Paris. And so for a month, I was in need or anything. That was about a month that I was delayed.
Did they diagnose it? Did they know what it was?
I think they called it infectious hepatitis.
Okay.
That's what they called it, and I presume that's what it is. And because of that, I can't give blood. They don't want blood from anybody that's
ever had it.
any kind of hepatitis. So eventually, I was able to go back. By that time, the war was over. And so then I'm going back to...
Okay, by that time the war is over, so the Germans, and the European theater anyway, has surrendered or something, right?
Right.
Do you recall the day that happened?
No.
Okay.
I only know that whenever I find out, we all were thrilled to death.
Yeah, of course.
Because it meant we were going back.
Right.
Not to the war, but to what turned out to be...
Occupation?
Occupation, yeah.
You don't recall much or anything about the day you found out that the Germans had surrendered? Okay.
I can't... As thrilled as we all were, I can't recall.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, in due course, when they decided I was ready to go back, somehow or other, I don't think it was by air. I think it was by
ship across the channel to
across the channel,
a truck maybe, or train or something.
Yeah, and I went to, I can't remember the name of the city, but it's way down the south of Germany. Oh shoot! And there's a relationship that was special where we went to because we were near one of the death camps, I think. But eventually, our unit was stationed at Camberg, Camberg. Anyway, we moved up into, I don't know whether that was Alsace or Lorraine or in Germany, and it was about 44 kilometers from Frankfurt.
Okay.
Northwest, west just a trifle, but mostly north of Frankfurt.
Okay.
And that would give the area where the different towns were if we had the map.
Yeah. Did you join your original unit, or were you attached to a new? Okay, so you got back and you saw people you knew then.
Yeah, yeah. And here's Tony Fargione, and I got a nice picture. I think may have shown you that. Here's Tony Fargione from Brooklyn. He's about this tall. He's taller than that probably, but and I've got the picture. Tony's holding one of the small ones in his arms, and he and I are working with these kids, about 20 or 25 kids, and I don't know, we were playing games or doing that kind of thing with them, and the folks, you know, just they were able to figure out that we weren't there to mess with the kids or harm the kids, the Germans. Yeah. And then one guy didn't understand. He was maybe he might have been 25 or maybe 30, I doubt it, but somewhere like that. He apparently didn't understand the word halt. And the guy shot him, the German. And he was in the hospital, which was across the street from the house we were living in. The Tuis, I remember their name, and they made brushes, and the Tuis.
Why was the German being told to halt? The American just didn't want him going wherever it was he was going.
I suppose that's the way I understand it. I wasn't there to see the actual shooting, but he shot him, and it was bad enough that he had to go in the hospital.
Did you provide medical care to the German that was shot?
I think our medical surgeon did. Silver, I.J. Silver.
I.J. Silver.
So I would go over and see this German guy.
Would you go?
The one that was shot.
Oh, okay, got it.
Didn't understand halt, and the soldier shot him. And he's in this hospital right across the street from where we were, and this is just a little village. And I'd go over, and his girlfriend came from Virgus, which is another village down the road a little ways, and we'd talk. I got so that we could have some pretty good conversations in German, and that was interesting. And my mother sent care packages to that couple for I don't know how long, and I want to cry. You know, that's why I'd like to be able to tell my folks how much I appreciated their parenting. You know, I think of that.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell them how much I appreciated their parenting. My dad had died early, you know. And
what year did your dad die?
He died in the spring of 1953.
Oh, okay.
And she did that for a long time. You know, there was care package. Maybe you don't know this, but after the war, they set up this care package thing that people could use to send to people in Europe during that time. I can't tell you much more about that, but my mother...
To Germans and Italians and families of the Axis powers.
Yeah, people who needed it. And my mother did that for a long time, and that's one thing I've not forgotten, you know, and I'd like to tell her how much I appreciate that.
You're visiting this German that was shot by the American sentry, whatever.
Yeah.
And so how long were you there before you left that area?
Gee whiz, I imagine, I can't remember, but 3, 4 months, 5 months.
Oh, okay.
It was a while, and I dated a girl there, like everybody else, you know, and there's pictures downstairs of that. And I remember one of the pictures is up on the Autobahn. We walked up the Autobahn, because we were in the valley, and the road went down the valley, and the villages are here, and then the Autobahn is up here. And I remember one picture, we walked up there, and then one Sunday afternoon, she invited me to her home, and here's the silver service and everything so beautifully laid out, you know, and all. That was a really very nice time. But, you know, that was just a nice relationship. But then going to the house, you know, and then Sunday afternoon, coffee and the silver service, and just beautiful. You know. And it was not, I don't think, a wealthy home. It was just an ordinary home. That's the way life was.
Was a lot of this area destroyed by the war, or was it pretty much intact?
It seemed like it was pretty much intact. The house we were living in, you know, we just took over the house. And the Tuis moved into the kind of a, he had a brush making shop. I think it was on the property. And so they were able to make do, I guess, by sleeping back there, Mr. and Mrs. Thui, T-H-U-Y. And the relationship seemed pretty good between You know, nobody was fixing to shoot him or anything.
So that's why you got to know him a little bit, because you guys lived in their house.
We lived in their house. And they were staying back here in the yard, back end of the yard, you know, in the buildings that were related to the brush shop. Then in due course, you know, we were getting ready to go to the Pacific.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then
This is mid 45, probably.
we were going to Japan, and then the war in Japan ended. And
2 September 1945.
2 September.
Yeah.
Well, then that means that we must have been in Germany.
Well, it's according to your service record, you departed the European theater for October 45.
Yeah. Well, that sounds reasonable.
But you're in Camberg,
Yeah.
and for 4 or 5 months or so, and then what
Went to
what
Britain.
happened?
I think we went to Britain.
Okay.
And I think we came home from Britain, not from France.